to Swarm of Comics. I'm Randy, your handsome and humble host. Just a short video today. I wanted to talk about a couple of new books that I picked up and also make a correction from an earlier video that you probably didn't watch, nor did you pay attention to, but it was bothering me. And what I talked about in the video was my first G.I. Joe comic book. And I showed you guys my first G.I. Joe comic book. I had dug out, it was in beat up condition. And I started thinking, right behind you is Indiana Jones #1. And I remember, although this was 40 years ago, more than 40 years ago, I remember the day my brother bought his first Indiana Jones comic was the first day I bought the G.I. Joe comic. And I mentioned that in my video as well. But something didn't line up because the Indiana Jones book was 1983 and the G.I. Joe book I said was my first was 1984. So I started going back and digging through the books that I had. And turns out I was wrong, which is okay. It was a long time ago. This is the first book that I ever bought, which was G.I. Joe #13. I'll take it out of the bag. This is beat up. This is completely torn apart here. This was the first one. And it says July. And if you go back to Indiana Jones #7 in 1983, it also says July. I'll try and throw up a picture of it up on the screen because somebody got some editing skills this weekend. Video editing skills, that is. So this was my first book. This was the first G.I. Joe book, not my first book, my first G.I. Joe book that I picked up in 1983. Not the other one with Clutch on the cover, although that was a good, fun book. Anyway, this was the first one. And this is in even worse shape than the other one. We must have read the heck out of this book. But anyway, I wanted to make a correction. That was my first book. So the next books I'm going to open here, I don't remember which one is which, but this book came from Spider Dude Comics, and I must have just got it off of eBay or something like that. So I've already cut it open, so you didn't need to listen to that awful noise, unless you wanted to hear that noise. Like, do people like those ASMR noises? Should I start making these into ASMR videos? Like, yeah, I'm going to open the comics. I don't know. Maybe I'll get more views that way. So I'll gently place that wrapping on the floor. This isn't a nice gem mailer or a gem ripoff mailer, but they're designed to hold comic books when they're shipped in place. Show it this. I just cut it open here and you open it this way. It is Gemini Comic Supply. That's what it is. And then there's a little piece of tape in here. Comics we put them in bags and boards, or we package them up this way. And people have always historically used Scotch tape, but Scotch tape is a killer. You're pulling that book out of a bag and that Scotch tape catches that comic, you can ruin that comic. So the better trend in the last few years is using painter's tape, blue tape, or whatever tape it happens to be. Oh, we got a Spider Dude comic card. It says scan me. That seems desperate. And then inside the mailer, there's this. And as you can see, it's got a bunch of black painter's tape, which I didn't even know existed. So now I'm going to try and open this. I guess I should have opened it more than I guess you're going to be sitting through me opening it a little bit more here. We'll just call this an ASMR video. Watch me open it. All right. Oh, this is a cool comic. Not only is this a cool comic, it's got a cool story behind it. And I will just gently remove this out of the packaging. So here is the book. This is called Cavalier Comics, and it's #2. And it's in pretty good shape. It only has one staple. Companies are very cheap, and it was back in post-war time, wartime, whatever it is. I'll have to look up what the actual year was on this. But not only is this just a great cover, like imagine that back there with the books in a slab, how beautiful that just looks. Nice and simple. I love it. But that's not what's interesting about this book. What's interesting about this book is where it came from, what collection it came from. And I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. My whole life I felt like I ramble on too long, and now I'm too apologetic with keeping things brief. But for sake of a short video, so you can get back to working or doing lunch or whatever, this book was part of something called the IRS Collection, which is a misnomer because it is not from the IRS. A gentleman who worked for the Department of Revenue for Colorado back in the 1980s started pulling a scam where he would take the tax return checks that were meant for recently deceased taxpayers. So filed your taxes and then you died, or your accountant filed for him and you died. Where's that check going? Well, he kept all the checks, and he started feeding his comic book habit. And he ended up amassing 60,000 comics. And he would go to auctions all over the place, and he was pretty careful for years. He would just cash the checks and then pay in cash for the comics. And he finally got caught when he started paying with checks that were from the Colorado Department of Revenue. And he got lazy, got caught. His goal in collecting, this is what also was fascinating. His plan was to collect one copy of every single comic book printed during the Silver Age. And the Silver Age was 1956 until 1970. And he also was targeting the Golden Age. So for the Silver Age, he had amassed 75% of every single book printed. It didn't matter what printer it was, Marvel, DC, Harvey, Dell, you name a company, Charlton, he got 75%, a copy of every single book printed. And he had 25% of all the Golden Age books. He had some pretty key books. He never had anything like Action Comics #1 or Detective 27, but he had some good books. And somebody bought the collection from the IRS. It was actually a kid in his 20s, and he took out a loan with his dad and paid $200,000 for the collection of 60,000 books. And he got rid of most of them and made his money back and made a pretty good living. And he sold them over the years, and this came from it. I think he said he still got like 40,000 books out of the 60,000 books still left, and he pieces them out here by here, but they're cheaper books and stuff. And this is fairly cheap book. Now, I don't know if I didn't buy this from him, but I bought this from somebody who must have gotten some of that collection. So that is the story behind Cavalier Comics #2. This came from the IRS collection, which again, it's not the Internal Revenue Service. It was the Colorado Department of Revenue, but that's the nickname it got. So that's the little story behind this. And it comes with a certificate of authenticity. Now, I want to get this comic graded. It's in pretty good shape. It's got to look like a little water damage here, a little the top. I think some of it can be flattened out, but still, it looks so good. It's worth getting slapped. I didn't pay a ton for it, and it's just an absolutely beautiful book. When you send things to grading companies, I don't know how they're going to handle this. This will be my first time sending in something with a certification. They might not care. They might accept this pedigree and recognize it, and then up on the top of the slabbed book, it'll say, IRS Collection pedigree. I'm hoping so. And I hope they send my little certificate back with me. Like I mentioned in another video, back in the day, they used to just throw these away, and even if they certified it and said it had a pedigree, they would still throw those away. So we're going to see what they do. I'll follow up in a video once this gets done. Who knows when that's going to be? But so that's the first book. That is Cavalier Comics #2. And here's the next book that I picked up. This one doesn't have a lot of tape, but it's got a lot of bubble wrap. I save all of the, again, we're going to do a little ASMR-like opening out bubble wrap here. If you don't know what ASMR is, go to YouTube and put that in, or Google it, and you'll find out what I'm talking about. I reuse all this bubble wrap. I save all of this from when we do other packages. I hate all of this waste. So let's open it up. Bubble wrap, mailer, and the slab book here. I went over one of these books the other day when I was talking about cool covers on comics. A nice alliteration. This is Wonder Woman #200. The other day you saw me talking about Wonder Woman 199, and I've been tempted to get 200. I bought $199 with the bondage cover. It's the was it Jeff Jones covers here. This was when Wonder Woman was going as Diana Prince, it says it up there, and she didn't have any powers. They took her powers away, and she was going to all these very dark adventures, very James Bond-esque. And I was tempted to buy this book, and I was going to buy it raw, but raw values were so high that for a little bit more money, I could get it already slabbed. And I got it in 8. It's never going to be worth $1 million, but that just cover is just amazing. You're never going to see it good on this camera with my light and stuff like that. But beautiful cover. Look this up. This is The Beauty Hater. She has a mask on here, and she must hate that Diana Prince is so beautiful. But this is a Jeffrey Jones cover, who Frank Frazetta said was one of the best artists in the genre. So you got to take that. So this is from 1972. This was a 52-page book, so it's square bound. It's got a little staining on the back and everything like that, but still pretty good shape. And that's an 8.0. So those are the 2 new books that I got. They arrived in the mail last night, so I thought I'd do a little video and talk about those. Some, again, cool history behind those. I talked about the bondage covers, or one of the hot things for people buying books. Bondage covers and skull covers, and there's all different types of things that people are collecting. So that's it for today. Again, I'm Randy from Swarm of Comics. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe, send me money, anything what you want to do, but I hope you enjoy it.